Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers Burning Question. That's right, we're back. This is me, solo show. I do it every week, every Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in. If you're live on YouTube, you can always check us out in the live chat. I know that my co-host on the Standard is the Standard, Lance Williams, said he should be in there patrolling around. So all you hooligans in there, keep an eye out for Lance in there. But anyways, before we get to any news, because there is some news, not so much Steeler news, but in terms of giveaway news. That's right, folks. We are having a giveaway for you, potentially. Here's how this is going to work. First and foremost, we're looking for a diehard fan, and we're looking for someone that is willing and able to go to a Steelers draft party for season ticket holders for free. That's right, for free. So if you want to get in on this contest, first things first, you have to be able to go. All right, we don't want to give away tickets to someone that's just going to sit on them and not go. So if you're someone that lives in the area or was willing to drive to Pittsburgh or is willing to fly to Pittsburgh, however you get there, planes, trains, automobiles, I don't care. If you're someone that is willing to go to Pittsburgh the Saturday after the draft for their draft extravaganza for season ticket holders, then by absolutely this contest is for you. So here's how it's going to work. You have to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on our audio platforms, that means that you would have to go to YouTube, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe to our channel. That's the first thing we're going to check. Okay, so if you don't subscribe, even if you get all the questions right, you're not going to get the tickets, period. So you have to subscribe to our channel. That's step number one. Step number two, you have to listen to our shows, our next shows. I'm not giving you a question tonight. So the first question will be tomorrow night, Thursday night, the Steelers preview. Dave Schofield will be the man with the plan. He will ask the question. You have to listen to the episode, listen for the question, and you'll have to email him your answer. Now, after that, the next question will come on Sunday when Lance and I are on for the Standard is the Standard. So in other words, you have to pay attention to the shows. You have to listen. There will be 4 questions before we announce the winner. And then the last question, because I know a lot of you might say, well, what if we don't get all 4? The last question is one that we're going to take the closest answer possible. We'll find a way to figure it out. But again, to enter into this contest, you have to, number 1, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Number 2, you have to get all the answers correct or as close to correct as possible. I've already been tested with some of the questions that Dave asked. They're good questions. If you're a diehard Steeler fan, you'll get them. And lastly, remember, make sure you can go to the event. Okay, it's in Pittsburgh. I believe it's at Heinz Field. You'll be there with some of the rookies. You'll get a chance to talk to some players. I know that Dave in the past has said that he's spoken to guys like Bill Hillgrove and other players. They've had stuff for kids. It's a great event, and we want to send you there for free. But you got to follow those very, very simple, very simple rules. If you have any questions, you can feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube. Don't do it in the live feed. I don't go back and check that too much, but I do read all the comments from the YouTube videos. So if you have a question, you can do that. You can email me. You can find my email address on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, or you can leave a comment there as well. There's a plenty of ways. If you have questions, ask. But we want to get you there, so make sure you get involved in this, okay? Okay, and if you can't make it, but you know someone that lives in Pittsburgh, tell them about it. Tell them, say, hey, you got to get on YouTube, subscribe. All right, so let's get to the burning question. For once, the Steelers, I get it, and this has been a common thread amongst all of our shows. There's always been 1 or 2 people that say, oh, are we still talking about Antonio Brown? Are we still talking about Le'Veon Bell and his crappy rap music? Tip of the cap to Lance. Told him I'd try to get that in there every show. But still, we still talking about this. And the thing is that you have to understand that we are considered a media outlet. And that would be like saying to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, why are you covering Antonio Brown? Well, you do it because it's news. It involves the team, period. I mean, that's it. So we do have to cover the news, and we do talk about the news because it's news. And that's what's the soup du jour, so to speak. Now, for me today, my question is not so much about Antonio Brown, not so much about Le'Veon Bell and his crappy rap music. That's two times I mentioned that. What I'm trying to talk about today is the burning question is the drama over in Pittsburgh? Are we done with it? I mean, is it over with? That's the question. Now, I know a lot of people will hear this and have that, again, the immediate knee-jerk reaction and say, no, it's not over. There's no way it's over. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. So I broke this down, and I literally took some time to think about this. Wrote down some notes for those on YouTube. Got them right here. Don't mind the kids drawing. So here's the thing. Is the drama gone in Pittsburgh? Well, let's talk about first who were the main causes of drama in the past. We're talking recent past in the 412 area code. If you didn't know what 412 area code that is, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So let's go with this. First and foremost, Antonio Brown. We know that ever since Facebook Live, that incident after the Kansas City Chiefs divisional round playoff win, drama has been somehow, some way, shape, or form derived from Antonio Brown. It could be as simple as his entrances to training camp. It could be as complex as the way he forced himself out. But he was definitely a cause for drama. Number 2, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is another guy that caused drama. Not so much for his actions. Sure, he had suspensions early in his career. But towards the latter portions of his time in Pittsburgh, it was more about money. It was more about contract. And obviously, he held out the entire 2018 season. Still, there was drama surrounding Le'Veon Bell. And then people forget about this because of Antonio Brown. But I mean, remember when the players were raiding his locker and stealing his cleats and his shoes? And that was crazy. That was drama. Next, we go to Ben Roethlisberger. Because although a lot of people don't want to lump Ben Roethlisberger in with those other two guys that I just mentioned, he certainly does bring about a certain amount of drama. Whether it's the snide comments after a game, I think of the Jacksonville game, Week 5, 2017. He throws 5 interceptions, and he says that maybe I don't have it anymore. Now, I understood that he was not 100% serious. It was kind of tongue in cheek. Yet, what did everyone write? Ben Roethlisberger questions whether he still has it anymore. That's drama. He goes onto his radio show and he publicly criticizes players, and he publicly criticized coaches in the past with Todd Haley. He threw him under the bus several times. I mean, he criticized Antonio Brown, James Washington. He kind of chastised Le'Veon Bell at the same time. He caused drama too, and that's why he's on this list. Lastly, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin caused drama, not just because he let a lot of this stuff slide, but also because sometimes he can't keep his mouth shut either. I go back 2 weeks with Lance Williams, his solo show, Yeah, I Said It, which is only on audio platforms right now. So if you don't follow us there, make sure anywhere you download podcasts to search Steelers Behind the Steel Curtain, you'll find us. His show, Yeah, I Said It, which I love listening to. It's really short. It's only about 10 to 15 minutes in length. He said about how sometimes Mike Tomlin just needs to shut up. And it's true. Think back to when they're getting ready to play the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers isn't there. But you know what? What's Mike Tomlin talking about? He's talking about the New England Patriots. He's talking about the New England Patriots and how he can't wait to see him in the AFC Championship game. That was a gigantic source of drama. So those 4 individuals all caused massive amounts of drama in the past few seasons, not necessarily just last season. Could be the year before that. So now I ask, where do they go from here? Okay. So did they learn their lesson? Did the Steelers organization learn the lesson? Well, first and foremost, no Antonio Brown. Check mark. Although Antonio Brown is still causing some semblance of drama, it's off-season drama. I'm sure he's still going to chime in from time to time, but he's gone. So we'll put a check mark. No Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell got paid. He seems to be happy in New York. He's loving life with gangrene right now. So he's gone. He got paid. Check mark. The Steelers got their $14.5 million in cap space. I think that one's pretty much done. How about this? No Ben Roethlisberger radio show. Now, this is still a report. Ben Roethlisberger's radio show still might be a thing. I'm not so sure. But if it's true that the report is that he's not having his radio show anymore, to me, that's a lesson learned. Big check mark. Big check mark. And lastly, Mike Tomlin's comments. Now, it hasn't been in the season, and he's had to answer. He's fielded some questions at the owners' meetings, but nothing as intensive as those weekly press conferences that he has to typically answer questions for. But his comments have been very true, and they've been very accurate, in my opinion. And so for me, I feel like Tomlin, he learned his lesson. Okay. I feel like he learned his lesson. And so that would be another check mark. So far in this offseason, I think that these players in this organization is kind of trending in the right direction. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But we're not done analyzing this just yet. What about future drama? So we know what Antonio Brown did, but what about the players that are on the team now? What's going to happen then? Well, let's talk about some of the players that are on the team that could possibly cause drama. I struggled to find them. I mean, you still have Tomlin, you still have Ben. They still have the ability to bring about drama and headlines and news and all that stuff. But just listen to some of these names, okay? TJ Watt, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, Alejandro Villanueva, Marquise Pouncey, Ramon Foster, Cameron Hayward, Joe Hayden, Stephon Tuitt, James Washington, Mike Hilton, all these players, and I could have gone and named more. All these players are high character guys. I'm talking about guys that already throughout all this drama have been the ones that have said, you know what, we have to be the calming force in this storm that is just a ton of drama. And I think that they're a team that doesn't want the distractions. There were times last year and in years prior where I felt that some players, mainly Brown and Bell, they wanted their name in the headlines. They wanted the attention. They wanted to get their cause, or for Bell, it's to get the most money he can. For Brown, it's to get himself out of Pittsburgh. They wanted their cause to be known. They wanted to make a stance. They wanted to make a scene almost, and that caused distractions. I don't see that in any of these players that I just named. And like I said, I didn't list all of them. This roster, in my opinion, is a very high character roster now that Brown and Bell are gone, period. I think about it too, because a lot of this stems from social media, and social media use can be great. I mean, look at how a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster handles social media. He handles it very well. He shares a lot, especially if you follow him on Instagram. He shares a ton. It's not like some of these players that are just hit or miss. They're not on it very often. He shares a ton, and he doesn't do anything that's going to be bad for his team or his brand. It's very much alive and well. All those players that I named are also active on social media, but they're not like those other guys. Those guys that are putting out crappy rap songs with lyrics that are talking about how they want this, they want that, they deserve this, they deserve that. They don't have it's just not them. So I actually believe that when it comes down to it, look, it's the National Football League, people, period. And when I say it's the National Football League, I mean that the Pittsburgh Steelers and every NFL team is going to have some type of drama throughout the course of a season. So for me to sit here and say that the drama is completely gone, I think is silly, and I think it's irrational. But I do think that the Steelers, in what they've done this offseason, have decreased their drama significantly. I think that you're going to see a very different team this year. I mean, think about it as something as simple as training camp. They're probably just going to show up. Antonio Brown's not going to come flying in on a helicopter. They're not going to, he's not going to come in a Rolls Royce in an ancient, all this stuff that even go back to Brett Kiesel showing up on a tractor, or James Harrison coming in on a fire truck. I think it's going to be very simple. I think it's going to be very mundane to some. I think it's going to be a welcome change for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so for me, I think that, I believe that the Penguins, I say the Penguins, I can't believe that. I'm watching the Penguins game at the same time. They're tied up 2-2 in the third period when we're recording this. I think the Steelers are going to be a different team this year. I think they're going to have a different focus, and I think it's going to be good for the team. So there you have it. I think the drama is not over, but it's going to be significantly less. Period. So at this time, I have a couple questions I want to answer. If you're in the live chat and you have a question, you can go ahead and fire them away. But what I did today is I went on to Twitter. If you don't follow us on Twitter, at BT Steel Curtain, And I just put out a tweet that said, hey, we have our show coming up. And I wanted to see if anyone had any questions for the show to be answered live on the air. And we had some questions. I want to answer them first. Then I'll get back into the live chat and we'll see what's going on. So Ernest asks, with Juju being the number one receiver, who do you see stepping up as the number two? Now, this is a question that has been asked a lot. I was asked this last week on the Steelers Burning Question. Lance and I talked about it at length on the Standard is a Standard, which you can go back and check. That airs on Sunday, so make sure you check us out on Sundays live here on YouTube. I think that it's going to be a mixture of players. Lance said that he thought it was going to be Vance McDonald. I tend to think it's going to be more of a Dante Moncrief / James Washington, or even a rookie. If they draft a rookie high in the draft that's able to come in and play. I just think that Juju Smith-Schuster is versatile enough they can put him in the slot, which is going to mean that Ben Roethlisberger is going to have targets on the outside like Moncrief and Washington. They should be able to get their stats and their points based on the fact that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be a matchup nightmare from the slot. So there's no clear-cut answer at this point in time, but at the same time, I think that it could be a variety of players. Even look at someone like James Conner and how many targets is he going to get, and how many are Ryan Switzer and or Eli Rogers going to get. So it's going to be maybe number two by committee. And say what you want. Some people will say that means that the wide receiver depth isn't that great. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to go as far as saying that I think it's just going to be a work in progress, and they'll find it some way, shape, or form. All right. Tony asks, if the Steelers don't make the playoffs this year, do you see any changes in the coaching staff? Yes, I do. Not necessarily with Mike Tomlin. A lot of people think that Mike Tomlin could be gone. I disagree with that. Lance on his I said it this week. He disagreed with that. He said that Mike Tomlin's not on the hot seat. I think personally that if we're going to see any type of changes from a coaching standpoint, it would be the defensive coordinator. Keith Butler is entering his final year of his contract, and while a lot of people thought that he was going to get fired after last season, they kept him. They said we're going to play out his contract, see how it goes. We'll see how this year goes. I hope they don't miss the playoffs for a second year in a row. But if they do, I think there will be some more coaching turnover. There was coaching turnover last year. It just wasn't at the coordinator position. It wasn't the big name guys that a lot of people wanted gone. It wasn't the Butlers or the Danny Smiths, or even, as a lot of people have said, Mike Tomlin. So yeah, I think there will be change if they don't make the playoffs. Don't expect the head coach to be fired, but at the same time, you never know. Brian asks, Jeff, do you think the Steelers, with the pieces they have now, are a playoff or Super Bowl caliber team? I do think, I shouldn't say I think, I do hope that the Steelers are able to pull off an NFL draft coming up here in a couple weeks that can really facilitate and solidify their lineup. They don't have as many holes as people think. Inside linebacker, cornerback, wide receiver, and after that, it's depth. You talk about safety, but I'm comfortable with Terrell Edmonds and Sean Davis is in week one if that's their safety tandem. People talk about running back. Well, yeah, but running back, that's like running back 3, because Connor and Samuels have 1 and 2. It's not a huge glaring need. You could say tight end, and I would definitely listen to that. Edge, pass rusher, I would listen to that. But again, that's all depth, because I think that Xavier Grimble and Vance McDonald are going to be your week 1 starters at tight end. And after that, I think they're going to find someone to come in certain situations. I don't think the tight end is a huge glaring need. So I think this team is a playoff contender. I think that this team is a Super Bowl contender, even because Ben Roethlisberger is that good. He's that kind of player, and they do have skill positions around him. I think the one thing that, people talk about Kevin Colbert, they talk about all the swings and misses he's had, especially early in the draft and especially with defensive backs. But what they don't talk about is how this guy and Mike Tomlin and the scouting department have done a masterful job of keeping the talent coming through. It's incredible when you lose Le'Veon Bell and you don't miss a beat. I mean, there should be some praise attached to that for the general manager that drafted James Conner in the 3rd round, knowing that his potential was back when he was healthy, before the cancer, before the knee injury. He was considered a 1st-round running back, and they found that in the 3rd round. So that's just one example. I think that this is a very much a playoff team. I think they can win the division. I'm not alone in thinking that. And I think that this team also is a team, you saw it last year even. If they would have just gotten into the playoffs, they could have done some real damage. They didn't, so that never came to fruition. But at the same time, I feel that this team is going to be one of those teams. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. Health is always going to be key. Key is staying healthy. Raymond asks, why hasn't Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers agreed on a new contract? This is definitely something that has been debated. A lot of people, myself included, thought that the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger were going to get a new contract done prior to the new league year starting. It would have, if they could have maneuvered their contract a certain way, it would have given them the opportunity to save some salary cap space. They didn't get a job. They didn't get it done then, and now everyone's saying that there's no rush for this deal to get done because they're not going to save anything really this year. They could maybe save something next year. They're basically going into Ben Roethlisberger's last year as status quo. They're going to get a deal done. It's probably at this point, it's just talking about the nuts and bolts of the contract. How much guaranteed? How many years? Is it a new deal? Is it an extension? All these questions that they have to kind of find that middle ground. So it's not going to be clear cut yes or no. They're not. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that they're going to get a deal done. The question is, when do they get it done and how much is it going to cost them? So we'll see. But I think there's a lot of stuff going on. If you're thinking Ben Roethlisberger is giving a home discount or whatever your home advantage, I'm forgetting the saying currently, a hometown discount. There it is, hometown discount. Then think again. He's going to want a deal that is going to be just as good as someone like Matthew Stafford, just as good as someone like Kirk Cousins, because he's just as good. If not, we all know he's better than them. And so he's going to want his market value. This is his last contract likely in the National Football League. He's going to make sure it counts. So that's my personal feelings. No one really knows what's going on. I think there's a good chance at this point they're not even going to talk about anything until after the draft. They'll look at their salary cap space. They might get a deal done that's going to give them enough salary cap space this year to get their rookies signed. And then after that, maybe to get some savings in the future. So we'll see. Andrew, he asked, what is the draft spot that either Devin Bush or Devin White need to fall for the Steelers to push and trade up? Devin White is considered to be some are saying a top 5 pick. Everyone's saying at least a top 10 pick. If he starts floating around the back end of the top 10, I could see the Steelers making a phone call. But if a team is, if they think a team's going to take him at 5, I think that the price tag would be way too much to jump that high. So if he's around the 10th pick and he hasn't been selected yet, I wouldn't be stunned if you see the Pittsburgh Steelers pick up a phone and at least put out some feelers. That doesn't mean they get a deal done, but they might try to trade up at that time. For Devin Bush, I think that you're looking about where the Cincinnati Bengals draft, because there's a lot of people, since they released Vontaze Burfict, I want to say the Bengals might be 11th or 12th in the NFL draft this year. I don't know that for a fact, so don't take that as gospel. But I think that the Steelers would look and say, okay, we want to get him before they do. So maybe you try to trade up ahead of them. So we're talking 15. If he gets to 15, I think they definitely try to trade up. If he's hanging out around 11 or 10, or you might see something happen. It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. And that's one of the most exciting things about the draft for me. I love watching the NFL draft. Why? Because you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what kind of trades are going to happen. You don't know what kind of, surprises. All these people say Cincinnati's going to want to take an inside linebacker in the first round. Well, Cincinnati also needs an offensive line. So what if Cincinnati, who everyone has pegged as taking Devin Bush, passes on Devin Bush because they take an offensive tackle or an offensive guard or a center, and then what? He's moving on, and he could become a potential. You just don't know. So that's what's always exciting about that. And Bama Steel, I love this. He says, how much do you reckon Juju is saving by living rent-free in Antonio Brown's head? And it's not he's probably saving a good bit of money, to be honest with you, because I'll tell you what, he's living in there. He's living in there good. And I just saw that on Facebook. I still follow Antonio Brown there. He's starting his own YouTube channel, which Juju has been in that game for a while. I wonder if they're going to have a bunch of discussions and debates about how many YouTube subscribers they have. So, well, I doubt it. We'll see. And a lot of people in the live chat, as I go back to the live chat, 11, see here, 11th. I'm sorry. The Bengals pick 11th. So this is a good question. It's about the show. Ryan O'Toole says, will you do a live show during the draft? Yes, we are going to do. This is going to be fun. It's not going to be during the draft because I have editorial responsibilities during the draft. I have to be at my computer. I have to be ready to write. So what we're going to do, and this might actually be a super show. And when I say super show, I mean, this is like the Avengers getting together. Maybe not quite to that scale, but it would be fun. And that would be myself, Dave Schofield, Brian Anthony Davis from those guys from the Steelers preview show, and get Lance Williams on here from the Standard as a Standard. Now, I've talked about this with Lance off the air, and he said the same thing. He said, Jeff, you and I aren't draft guys. What are we going to talk about? Well, you can't necessarily talk about, for instance, let's say they draft Byron Murphy. I think that's his name. From the cornerback from Washington. Anyways, so they maybe they draft a guy like that and a cornerback in the first round. I know a little bit about him, but what I also can say is I wish they would have addressed this position, which was still very heavy and strong at that time, the procedure and things like that. So we're going to do a show, getting back, going full circle here. We're going to do a show after every day of the draft. So round one happens, the Steelers pick, wherever that is. Let's assume it's 20th. We're going to do a show that night. I can't tell you a time because I don't know when they pick, and I got to figure out exactly how much work I have to do. So let's say the pick happens at 10 o'clock. There's a good chance we'll be live at 10:30 talking about the pick. You'll be able to be on here and keeping an eye on things as well. Then you would have day two. So we have rounds 2 and 3. That's 4 total draft picks for the Steelers in that round on day 2. That's a lot of work for the editor of the website. So again, we're going to figure out a time and we'll definitely sit down and we'll say, okay, what works best? And we'll talk about all those picks. And then day 3, you have rounds 4 through 7. That's during the day. So that will be probably a little bit earlier in terms of, the actual timing of the show, but we're going to do a show. I can't promise everyone will be on the show every single time, but we're definitely hoping that the first round we'll get everyone on there. So yeah, we are doing that show. So thank you for that question, Ryan. I did want to mention that and I keep forgetting. So I really appreciate you asking that. So, all right, let's hear. Thomas White has a couple questions. And like I said, I was over on Twitter there for a second. So if you asked a question in the live chat, now's your chance to make sure you get that live chat question back in there so that I can answer it. If the Devins are gone, what positions could afford a starter taking over? Safety, outside linebacker. I think you're referring to, well, if you're looking for a starter, if I'm looking for a starter and the Devins are gone, I guess positions, probably the safest pick. You're looking at cornerback, you're looking at wide receiver, safety. I'm not crazy about some of the safeties, but I haven't done a ton of research on them either. So we'll see. Now Thomas also says he's expecting a curveball, whether it's safety, defensive and outside linebacker. Brian Burns from Florida State. He was mentioned in Ray Fittipaldo's of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette seven-round mock draft. And again, it's crazy. Some people have Brian Burns in their mock drafts, which take that for what it's worth, and that's not much. You have a mock draft where people are just guessing. They have him going in the top 15. So you just don't know, folks, but we do our best to try to figure it out. Let's see here. Another question coming in. I don't know. Okay, so there's not a lot of questions. Maybe there's some. I'm trying to find a few here. The Steelers. Maybe everyone's just watching the Penguin game. I don't know. Here we go. With the number 1 pick being expected to play immediately, what position other than linebackers available for a starter? There you go. That's a question, Thomas. You expanded that on a little bit. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. And Ali says Juju's a great number 2. We need to be concerned with the number 1 spot. That's what I'm thinking. I said this on our show, The Standard is a Standard, with Lance. I said if the Devins are gone, don't be shocked. if they take a wide receiver, period. Just don't be stunned, because I just think that the Steelers will they're trying to find the best player available that's going to help their team now. And if that's a receiver, it's a receiver. I know that everyone wants defense, defense, defense. I saw someone comment on an article on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com the other day. It said that they should go all defense in this draft. They have 10 draft picks, people. 10 draft picks. Why in the heck would they do all defense? All 10 defensive players. They don't need 10 defensive players. They do need some offensive players. I don't get it. But then again, there you go. So there you have it. Live chat's kind of dried up. So let me, and that's okay. A lot of people are watching the hockey game. I get it. Let's go over some stuff here. Rehash. If you are listening to the end of this show, whether you're live on YouTube or whether you're someone that's listening in audio form, remember the contest. The contest is coming up. Starts tomorrow. You have to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you have to listen to the shows. And so tomorrow we're going to give you the email address. We'll put it in the description of the show. And we're going to give you the question sometime during the show, and you're going to have to listen. You have to email that email address your answer. And then we're going to have another question on Sunday. The standard is a standard. And then we'll have another question. There'll be 4 questions. And if whoever gets them all correct and subscribes to our YouTube channel, you'll win those 2 free tickets to the Steelers draft day or draft extravaganza experience, whatever they're calling it. Free tickets. Free tickets. We're giving them to you straight from BTSC. So with that said, I thank everyone for listening and contributing. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Go to BTSC Steelers Radio. Like and subscribe, as well as all on our audio platforms, anywhere where you download your podcasts or search for podcasts, search Steelers, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We're there. And absolutely BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. I'm Jeff. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Steelers Burning Question.